Park Board to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Tyler, if we could have roll call, please.
Mike Bovat,
Present.
Mike Moffett,
Present.
John Boersma,
Present.
Pat Connolly,
Present.
Tyler McLeod present, Nicole Bennett,
Present.
Mike Aurelio.
Here.
Thank you. Number 4, I'd like to consider approval of the minutes for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as posted.
I'll second.
That's a motion by Mike Moffett and a second by Pat Connolly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. Item 5, new business. A, review of Gates Playground renderings.
Yeah, so New Toys, which is the playground supplier we work with frequently, had discussed attending this meeting here tonight, but they couldn't be here. They had a last-minute issue that came up. So I did consider just removing this agenda item altogether and then having it on next month's agenda, but I think we can still have a general conversation about the project. So these are some conceptual designs that they submitted that will at least show kind of the scope of the project that's within our budget. And kind of the recommendation I think we should probably take with this playground, keeping in mind how deficient we are on the east side of town, particularly the southeast part of town. This could really end up being one of the few playgrounds we have once, all the development is said and done on that part of town. So I think we should approach it as such and really try to, make this our primary playground to serve, that side of town. And then have a structure with multiple play elements in place to kind of maximize the space we have there. So a few additions I could tell right away after reviewing these initial concepts. I think it would be great to have a 2 to 5 year old area. Most of our playgrounds are for ages 5 to 12. It's not uncommon to have a separate section for ages 2 to 5 as well. You're not seeing any swings in this rendering. I think that those are an absolute must as well. And then some type of a shade structure. I think a lot of the playgrounds you see nowadays would have like a sunshade over some of the main areas. So keep in mind the skate park that's going to be at this location is going to have a couple shade sails. I think having some for this facility as well would be kind of balance out the two amenities. So those are a few additions I could see right away after reviewing these initial concepts. Another discussion I just wanted to have is I mentioned the skate park that's going to be on the east side of our property. Jason, can you bring up the property there on GIS? So with the skate park being on the Clyde Avenue side of the property, I think it's probably not the best idea to have these two structures right next to each other, considering the different groups that are going to be using, the facilities. And then if we shift the playground to be more towards the middle, and then we're getting away from a parking lot, which is also not the best situation. So I was thinking, this could be something at least for the initial plans and renderings. We could have this on the west side of our park there for users to utilize that main parking lot. That way, it would be more accessible. So I wanted to mention that as well. And then I think the process moving forward, I would like to set up a meeting with the supplier to firm up a site plan for the project and to present, more finalized concepts, hopefully, next month. And that's something they would be more than willing to, attend to help walk us through.
That sounds good to me. So you think they'll have a possibility of making it next month then?
I do, yeah.
And then do we know overall what the timeline would look for that maybe?
I think the lead time on a lot of stuff these days is pretty crazy, given the supply chain. I'll mention that in another item, but I believe they said in the 2-month range. So one thing that they do have is a Sourcewell contract, which is the process by which we funded the skate park, which made that process more efficient. So that is something we can absolutely explore for this project as well.
Sounds good.
What are we looking for, like a budget on this?
So the earmarked amount was $230 going into this year. Now we had other capital projects we had listed as well. As long as we stay within our budget amount, we're okay. So that was the range that we kind of gave him to work with, at least for these conceptual designs.
And then like every one of these has there's 2 different bids. Like one's 201, then it has the 73,000. Is that included?
The 73 would have been the poured in place
Is
surface.
that part of the 201, or would that be?
That would be an additional.
Okay, that's
So
kind of what it looked like, but I couldn't read between the lines. But
So again, gentlemen, I want to make sure, I think you would see these plans firmed up a lot more, hopefully next month. I just wanted to, mention initially the plan was for them to be here to kind of, present, all these and, get our thoughts on them. So, I think this would be an agenda item next month as well.
I like the concepts. I think 2 and 4 had that swing that Johnny was talking about. I definitely think we should keep that swing, especially with the brand new park. I think we should have that one.
Yeah, Jason, could you go through a couple of them renderings?
Because I know that's exactly what he was talking about last time. Just throwing it into a park, was going to be an issue. But this one, I think 2 and 4 both had that swing. I don't know, like you're saying, a couple things to redo. I think whatever we do, that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
That piece, Jason, I'm sorry if you go back one, in the lower right-hand corner there, that's also a really cool, accessible, kind of a safe merry-go-round piece that's, that he says they're seeing is pretty popular and well-received, so that could be another option we consider. You can't see yourself on that, Johnny, or no? Or?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I see him on there.
Just don't eat.
As we went on, we're a little crazier
Just don't
than
eat
that.
first.
Well, there looks like there's a lot of potential and a lot of good input on that, so. Yeah, we'll work that over. Any other questions or comments? It sounds
Quick
good,
question.
Mr.
So what will be included when we move forward is more of a detailed breakdown of the cost of each of the units? How do they normally bid?
Yeah, you would see a more detailed itemized cost of everything with the project, from the equipment itself to the poured in place surface to the installation. So yes, there would be a much more detailed proposal.
And are these considered like package deals? They have like package A, B, and C, or is this something that was formulated? You kind of picked out each one to go onto the site? What's their process?
Yeah, so they have a designer, I think you kind of give them an idea. The idea that I kind of started with, for these designs was we talked about inclusive equipment recently. So they kind of take that kind of some inclusive pieces and incorporate it into a larger design that's within our budget. So, yeah, I mean, which is the important element, because they can really, these playgrounds these days are pretty impressive. So, yeah, there would be more detailed, more details available.
Well, like you said, it's also, they're connected with Sourcewell, right? So
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's a real asset there. Anything else? Okay, number 5B, Mr. Tyler, if you could speak to the consider request to purchase for Civic Park the lighting controls.
Yeah, gentlemen, so I'm going to recommend we defer this item. The pricing on the quotes we received was pretty inconsistent, so I did solicit another quote to help us make a good decision here, but it's not going to be available for a few more days. But just to talk about the project briefly, this has been an ongoing issue at the park for some time, where the lights are being turned on and off through breaker boxes at the park. And that's at both Miller Field and Rookie Field here. And it's just not a good situation with how it's set up currently. So what this project would do is add a single switch at each field that would be able to turn on the lights into a lockable box. So there would be no need to get into the breaker boxes going forward, which there shouldn't be a need right now. But we think this is a needed upgrade for now. At some point down the road, the lighting itself is going to will need upgraded, but we think that the fixing the controls for now will be a good first step.
And at the fields themselves, they're gonna have the access to the keys to unlock and,
Right,
I don't,
right, yep.
Yeah, but from what I'm understanding, the kids were breaking the locks, right? Going in there,
That's because of our new
correct.
basketball court
flipping them on, playing basketball, so.
through the winter. And that's always been an issue with the baseball, because they turn the lights off, then there's no games or something on a weekend, or it's bad weather. Somebody goes out there with their kid, they turn the lights on, they go home, and they don't turn them back off.
Yeah.
The other side of that is, anybody can walk up there, open the box, and you have 100% access to all the electricity inside there, which obviously is a safety issue.
Some cops patrolling.
Yeah. So we can consider tabling this till our next meeting in March.
Right, yep.
Right. I'd like to consider tabling the request for purchase for the Civic Park lighting controls.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to consider the deferral for next month's meeting.
I'll second that.
That's a motion by John Borsman, a second by Mike Moffett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Number 5, item C, consider proposals for memorial bench and tree programs. Mr. Tyler, if you could speak to that.
Yeah, so in recent months, I've received requests from folks who are interested in installing a bench at one of our parks for, to honor to pay tribute to a deceased loved one or to honor someone they, respect. So we currently do not have a program in place, so that's what's in front of you now. So I did a really deep dive into this and looked at other successful bench programs. So I think the process here would be they would make a donation. The applicant would make a donation, which would include a bench, a plaque, and then supplies for the installation. And then we would work with them to find a mutually agreeable location in our parks. And then we would go ahead and place the order. For the bench itself, I looked at probably 100 different benches, trying to find one that I think would work well. The challenge I was finding, I mentioned earlier, is with the supply chain being the way it is some of these orders were 16 to 20 weeks out. So this bench here was 8 to 10 weeks, and I think it's you see the recycled plastic slats. It's got a steel frame. There are multiple color options, so I think it would be a good option for us to include as part of this program. The pricing is $1,500. That includes all cost with the bench, the shipping, the plaque, and then any supplies that are needed for install.
then who would be installing it? Would it be St. John or would we hire somebody else?
That would be, so that was one of the reasons why we picked this bench. It's an in-ground mount option, so, talking to our maintenance staff, they fully think, expect they can handle that in-house. So I can move straight to the tree program as well, if there are no questions on that one.
I don't have anything. I think we're okay.
Okay, sure. So, and for also the tree program, this was also modeled off other tree programs with a similar process where we would receive a donation and then work to find a location that works for everybody. And applicants would select from 3 categories, either shade, ornamental, or evergreen. And I consulted an arborist and to finalize this list of species, so I wanted to make sure that they're native to the region and resistant to diseases. So had a few meetings with an arborist to come up with a good list here for folks to pick from. The pricing for this would be a $500, and it would be which would include a 1.5 to 2 inch caliper tree, and then a plaque to go along with it.
What do you mean by 1.5 inch? Is that the size of it, or?
That's the size, yeah.
Like a sapling.
Right.
Yeah.
They would come bald and burlapped, so.
How old is that? Do you know? Like, 'cause I know a lot of times it'll be like a 5-year-old tree, or that's a 8-year-old, or like, they have different, because when we put ours in our house, I think it was like a 4-year-old maple is what they called it.
I'm not sure how old. I know it would be much larger than a sapling, though. It would be kind of, you know,
So it's
a
decent
little
size.
mature, right,
Okay,
right.
perfect.
And I had a question, like, what would the thoughts be of like communicating that these are now available, these, you know, like benches and trees for memorials? Would we put that on the website? Do you think we could tie in with the clerk treasurer's office, maybe get some
Sure.
information out there? What was
Sure.
your thoughts on that, Tom?
Yeah, I think putting it on the website, I think absolutely promoting through social media as well. Yeah, and I, like I mentioned, I think I had 3 applicants they're lined up and ready to go. They'll probably be in tomorrow to do the bench at least, so. And last year, we did have a few requests for a tree donation. It's been one of those items that's been kind of, you know, on the back burner a little bit. Finally got around to putting this together.
Hey, one other thing. When we first did Founders Park, we were talking about maybe putting something in it to remember the original owner. Would this possibly be a good idea for us to do? And then maybe put his name on there like he was the original, that they donated or something along that line. We said we were going to try to figure out something.
Yeah, Mr. Allen, that's a good idea, Mike. I think that's,
Just a
I can
thought.
absolutely, yeah, I have his contact information. I do think we should present this option to him. That's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
That is good, Mike. Glad you thought
So,
of that.
a couple quick questions on here, and I really like these ideas. So the tree, the $500 donation for the tree, how did you arrive at that number?
So right now, the species that we selected for these particular trees are anywhere between 200 to 300. And then the plaque itself, you're looking at probably around $125. And then there'd be a little bit of materials related to the install. So for both the bench and the tree, I wanted to make sure it's not something we're trying to make money on. It's just going to cover all of our costs associated with the program.
That was my next question. Like, the primary goal of the program is to just have more trees and benches? Or is it, can it be a mix of income and trees and benches? What's the primary goal?
I think it was to provide an opportunity for folks to you know, it's pretty common for parks to have a memorial program in place. You know, you look at some of our parks, you know, they definitely could use more benches. You think of Prairie West Park, that park is so busy all the time, and a lot of folks, you know, are walking there every day, that to give them a few more options to sit, you know, would that tends to be, I think, where a few of these applicants, that's where they want, you know, their bench. So, in other parks as well, along the trail too, you know, where there's not many,
Sure.
Not
Nice to have
many-
more benches.
not many, you know, spots where they can, you know, stop to hang out. So,
Sure. So the primary reason is for you to have more benches?
sure,
And trees.
sure,
Well,
and trees.
To
yeah.
memorialize people that, of their lost loved ones too.
Sure,
That's the main
sure.
purpose, is to memorialize them.
Is that the main reason?
Well, that's why
I'm
they're called
asking.
memorial parks, and
For both.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand. Sure. If we had an abundance of benches and trees, I don't know if this was something we would explore, but this kind of gives us an opportunity to add more of these amenities.
And both are great goals. So I guess the only question I would ask is, is the cost proper? You know, so are we too cheap? Should we making a few bucks on this? What are other towns doing? I don't know if Munster or Sherrville or Crown Point's got a similar thing. And then what are they charging for theirs?
Right, so the cost, you know, like I said, I did a pretty deep dive into this. I think the costs are really all over the place, and it's dependent on the bench itself. So the bench, to give you an example, that we are putting in at Founders Park as part of that site furnishing was, I think, $1,800, not including shipping, which is, for an item like this, probably another $300 or $400. So the park benches can really, they range from a $500 bench all the way up to, like I said, close to a $2,000 bench. So I kind of thought we would pick one kind of in the middle of that road, and
Sure.
one that I thought was going to be attractive. I don't want one that I want to make sure it looks nice. Right.
Yeah, we like it nice, right?
Right.
Nice. I guess my ask would be is to consider possibly or look into more, can it be a profit generator where some of that money could be used to improve the parks, possibly. And then if there's a plaque there, at some point that needs to be replaced. So in 5 years or 10 years, who pays for that? Will the Parks Department have to pay for that? And I did see that the tree warranty, which is, we have to build in some room for error. If a tree goes bad, we have to pay for that. We want to, we at least minimum cost neutral. Just some ideas, thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah. I
Tree
think,
dies, we'll, lot of done.
and I think,
Yeah, making money on
yeah,
it.
I don't think
some
we're,
moralizing.
I don't think anybody's
Make
here
money off the
brought that
people.
up. We don't want to make money, do we?
No.
I don't think making money on somebody who's memorializing a
Yeah.
loved one. would
I don't
be
think
a-
that's,
Right.
yeah, that's probably not the direction we'd want
Gotta
to
have a
go,
moral
Mike.
compass there.
You wanted to be, I think it's a moral issue. I mean, so if they knew that the money was going to be spent in parks and they understood that it was going to meant to improve the parks, it's not like it's not like it's used for something other than what they already intend to be, to improve the park.
I just didn't want to, get to the point where we price it to the point where we're pricing people out of the program. I think the fees that are in place, like I said, they're pretty well in line with
We're taking advantage of it.
with several other similar programs. So I wanted to make sure to replicate other successful programs with it.
I think we're comfortable with the way it is, I think. Thank you. Any other questions on that? All right.
Do we need to make a move to?
Yeah, I was going to say, consider proposal for the memorial bench and the tree program for the parks in St. John.
I'll make a motion to approval for the parks and the trees in the village of St. John. The benches and the trees, I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
So that's a motion by Pat Connolly and a second by John Boersma. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
One point of discussion.
Sorry.
If I can ask that you amend your motion to not only approve the program, but the specific costs.
We did not mention the cost. You're right.
It needs to be mentioned as part of it under your authorities that you're actually approving the money.
Okay,
May I ask for an amendment?
would like to consider an amendment to the proposal for the memorial bench and tree programs to include the cost as mentioned.
Who made the initial motion?
I did.
So Pat, if you can amend it or withdraw it, one or the other.
Okay, I'd like to make an amendment that, as written, $1,500 for the bench and $500 for the tree, as written in the motion there. So I make a motion
Okay,
to amend it. We need a second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you.
If this were to change in the future, could we just change it? Like, if we find out $1,500, we're actually losing, could we make it more? Is that,
Absolutely. And
I don't know if that's something we're locked in
Or
here
even at some point, yes, at any point you wanted to modify that.
and go a different direction or something.
Obviously, supply is going to be different.
Right, okay.
Next year, or perhaps even, come summertime, whatever it may be, to adjust that accordingly, or if you realize that there's greater costs in that maintenance of the warranties are aren't so good, whatever it may be, yes, you can modify that.
Yeah, and Mike, I can tell you that my previous place of employment, they had a program like this in place that was successful, and I did reach out to them to kind of model some of what they're doing there, and that's exactly what they're doing now with the price increases recently, is they're going back to adjust their fees to make sure they're covering all their costs.
And like in 4 or 5 years, if they wear out, we could throw in there, they'd have to replace the
Right, 'cause
plaque for
things will wear out, right.
the price of the cost.
Right,
If we see that being an issue. If it lasts 20 years, we're great. I mean, but we'll
right.
see.
That may be whether or not it's fertilizer or whatever needs to be done to them in the meantime, yeah. You can amend that, it just is that it would have to be approved by you as a changing in that fee, or a change of that fee.
Okay. Ms. Nicole, thank you for that.
So there was a motion on the table from Pat and a second from
Aye.
Johnny.
Yes.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you for that. Number 6, old business, A, the skate park. Mr. Tyler?
Yes, I wanted to touch on the skate park. So in your packet, you'll see the schedule of values and the contractor's worksheets. And there's also the first invoice that's going to be included on this month's docket. This is going to include design, geotech, and engineering work for the project to this point. And you can see the next item on the list is mobilization. So they're targeting late March currently to mobilize. And the most recent construction schedule shows a late June completion. And I do think here, once we get into March, I think it would be great to have a groundbreaking ceremony. If you remember Driftwood Collective, they were pretty instrumental early on in that process to help us with the design. I'd like to get them involved, get some of their skating contacts involved, and for us as well.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, so you're thinking maybe in March?
I think sometime once we get near mobilization.
Okay. Would it be better maybe like during the week or like maybe a Saturday? So, you guys during the week probably would be,
If my daughter's not playing soccer, I'm free.
what time would we be looking at for that, you think?
I'll figure out a time that works best for everybody. I'm thinking probably an early evening,
Okay.
late afternoon.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
The baseball season.
Yes.
During the week, probably. I
It's
think.
the only thing that affects me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they're still looking at June then to complete?
That's the target right now. I know they're eager to get started. I know that with the delays we've had, we were put first on their list for this year. So
Outstanding. Any other questions or comments? Moving to number 7, reports and correspondence. A, staff.
yeah, so several items here I wanted to touch base on. So we've completed a few lighting projects recently. Prairie West Park, we added an LED light to the park to help illuminate the back side of the property there. And it's actually such a good light, it's actually helping light up the entire park. But we've had issues with vandalism, and there's some other safety issues. That park remains busy regardless of the time of year. Folks trying to walk their dog on the back side of the park there, falling down,
I don't know.
yeah. So we had to make a few adjustments to the light to help, as we heard from a few of the neighbors, is it's doing such a good job. So, we think it was much needed improvement. And another project, we're on the contractor schedule right now to add similar lighting to the dog park. We had a few residents, a few members of the dog park, I should say, reach out saying that, again, this time of year, get into winter, it's dark around 4:30 or 5, but again, the dog still wants to go to the dog park. So, this would be a similar light that would light up pretty much that entire park, and it'd be on a timer.
Nice.
I wanted to mention I applied for a grant application for the Nerp Community Tree Program. This is a program that Nerp provides. I think since it started, they provided something like 9,000 trees to agencies in the region. So we would hopefully receive 1-inch caliper native trees to plant and maintain. And we've identified a few parks and open areas that could definitely use some more trees, which I think would supplement our memorial program pretty well. But there would be a workshop as well as part of that at a date to be determined in April, where we could send, our maintenance crew to, we could send them to help get them a little more educated on tree-related items.
Is there any thought of how many trees they might?
I applied for 25, so I think part of the process, I think they're going to connect me with the U.S. Department of Forestry, and they'll come out and help us kind of identify areas and then a planting plan to go along with the trees that we would hopefully receive.
Nice.
And then I want to mention, I think the town is in the process of, or next year, the electrical transmission lines that go east-west through town are going to be upgraded. And this is a 2023 project. And I mention it at this meeting because the trail section from White Oak Avenue to Bull Run Drive will have to be closed during this time. And we could also have to section off a part of the parking lot at Klein Avenue, or the entire Gates location, I should say, as sections of that parking lot is in the right-of-way of these lines as well. So they're going to form a plan to help keep these areas safe during this process. But like I said, this is a 2023 project, so I don't think it's been finalized if it's going to be spring or fall, but wanted to let you guys know.
Thank you.
And then some ongoing programs, Young Rembrandts, which is our drawing program for grades 1st through 6th. The next 6-week session starts next Tuesday. And this is Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. And then Bricks for Kids, which is our Lego program for grades 1 through 6. That's the next 6-week session starts on March 7th. And that's Mondays at 5:30 p.m. The National Flag Football League, our partner that we work with, spring registration is open till February 27th, and their season begins on April 10th. And then spring registration for Soccer Shots is also open. That's the program for ages 2 through 8, with those classes starting in April. Our egg hunt is scheduled for Saturday, April 9th at 10:30 a.m. at Lake Hills Park, and that event is for kids up to 8 years old. And registration is going to open for that on March 7th. And in all likelihood, we'll probably have to add a second hunt that day to accommodate the demand, because that's how we handled that last year. And I also just wanted to thank Gabe and Russ. It's a unique arrangement with their positions, as they also assist Public Works. But they have a large plow route in town in addition to their park maintenance duties. And so there were some long days recently for them to keep up on everything. We've made it a priority to keep the trails and the sidewalks clear. And they've stayed up on that, as well as the massive plow route they have. So appreciate everything they do.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
We on the board yet?
Pardon?
On the board.
Yeah, board members.
Just to go along with what you're saying, I've noticed the sidewalks and the trails, Gabe and you guys, they do look really good. So that's awesome. We talked before about the cameras at Prairie West. Did we ever approve those or decide to get those? Are those installed?
They are.
And how did that come out? Because when he brought up the damage and stuff we're having out there, that made me think of that. Just the status of that.
They work fairly well. Right now, there's a battery problem, but I'm hoping to get that sorted out soon.
So we do have cameras. All right, awesome. And then I just thought about this too. For the parks, for the accessibility, wasn't there some grants out there for that kind of stuff or anything? Like, would any of that help with us getting the parks, or is that not the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's absolutely ADA accessible, grants related to that equipment.
Same thing with us doing like some of these, some of the stuff that we're thinking on.
Right,
Could
and
that
there,
help us?
if you recall the CD, the Community Development Block Grant that we received, that helped pay for a portion of the Founders Park project related to accessibility. I'd have to check and see when that funding cycle is. But even if it's not that one, there would be other opportunities we can look into, for sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I was just gonna have a quick question. Jason, are we live streaming or no? Is it live?
Technically, we are live streaming. Unfortunately, I had to mark the stream private because I was running some tests earlier today, and I didn't make the stream public. It is recorded. As soon as the meeting ends, I can flip the switch back to public, and then the meeting will show up.
Okay, I was just curious. Also, I'd like to piggyback off of Mike and Tyler. Appreciate Gabe and Russ. I know a lot of the citizens got a lot of roads out there, a lot of snow. So everything that we can do under your direction, Tyler, I appreciate that. And I think we got a lot of things in the fire moving forward. Comments from you gentlemen? Okay. For liaison, Mr. Mike was going to ask you if you could maybe introduce Dave for the EDC. He was going to speak and kind of bring us up to speed.
Dave, would you like to speak, my friend?
Hi, guys. Dave Beeshold, 10206 Felberg Court in South St. John, member of the Economic Development Committee. Just to give you a little bit of a heads up, late last year, it came to our attention that fundraising and event planning was something that the village would like to get into. At your last board meeting, the Malt Brothers Welch's talked about an Oktoberfest.
Are you talking about St. John or?
St. John.
Oh,
Okay.
It's a town.
And then at the same time, it was laid on our plate as an economic development committee to look into something that would coincide in a combo event with the fireworks on 4th of July. We ended up, our president, John DeYoung, and Rob Ganoy here, our vice president, vetted, or I should say, found a couple of event planners and brought them to our last meeting, which was the tail end of January. At that meeting, we were able to hear from them, kind of pick their brain a little bit, and get some ideas about what this entailed. What are we asking? What can we do? Where does this go? It was obvious to us at that meeting that we needed to include parks immediately, because initially we were talking about Heartland Park, because that's where the fireworks were last year. So we called a special meeting last week, which is, normally our meetings are the last Wednesday of the month, but we had one 2 weeks later because we wanted to include members of the park board. Mike was there, Tyler was there, Nicole was there, and we kind of outlined what we were thinking with getting their input on what they thought. The two girls that we vetted, one was very much overpriced and wasn't really interested, a little bit more of a personal thing. The other girl was someone that was interested, has 22 years experience in event planning and events such as this. So we talked to her a little bit. Mike Aurelio was there. He's a member. He's also our council liaison. He's your council liaison. He felt it was in our best interest to get together and propose something here tonight. So that's kind of why I'm here. Our biggest issue, and Tyler brought it up, is going to be the heavy lifting that parks would have to be a part of, simply because of the venue. What does that entail? We kicked around all different types of ideas as far as start times, what it could be. Could it be food? Could it be entertainment? Could it be alcohol, talked to Nicole, talked to Mike, got some ideas on the permitting process to move that along, which is inaugural type of stuff. We've never done that before at the town level, especially the alcohol part. Dates, we kicked around either the Saturday, which is the 2nd, the 3rd, the Sunday, or perhaps the 4th of July, as we would work with the combination of the fireworks and if and when that would happen. Everybody seemed to think it would. We thought approximately, based on talking to Tyler, that there was somewhere between 1,000, 2,000 people for the fireworks display last year. Parking was not a problem, but that was because we got people there that offered their property to park cars on. So there was a lot of moving and shaking in kind of a 11th hour put together. This too is an 11th hour put together. And the event planner's biggest concern was the time that would take to get this done. I think we cleared some of the hurdles with Nicole as far as permitting and stuff like that. We ended up at our board meeting then offering this Cindy Copenhaver, as she's a South Holland resident, but she's got 22 years experience, to be our event planner for this event with a salary between $3,000 and $5,000 to run this, with a scope to be determined, with a event organization to be determined. So the reason I'm here tonight is to ask for your input and for your ideas. We meet again next week, Wednesday night. We'd like to, one way or the other, kind of put this either on or off. We realize the time frame is small. We got 5 months basically to get this thing around. Whether it's food trucks, whether it's bands, entertainment of that type, a beer tent, all these things are something that the Economic Development Committee would like to at least get into the inaugural stage, with the idea of profits from that going directly to departments, and in this case, parks, simply because you guys would be doing some of that heavy lifting. So I really don't have anything to say beyond that, other than we will, one way or the other, with your approval or disapproval, pull that trigger next week, Wednesday night, because we need to give the event planner the option to jump right in. So if there's any questions you guys have that I can answer or Mike can answer, Rob's here, he might be able to answer them. That'd be great. If not, that's really kind of all I got.
If I could just comment real quick too, then Tyler and myself had the opportunity, and Miss Nicole, we were invited, and you gentlemen all got the email. So I kind of felt that, I would be supportive as a park board member. Is there anybody, like for the July 4th festival, anybody see any obstacles or think maybe that they wouldn't be in favor of the park board supporting
Who's
this?
paying for all this? Who's going to pay for the police to be there? Because all of this, you have to have, if anybody goes to St. John Fest, you have anywhere from 7 to 10 officers at all time. Is that coming out of the parks budget?
Sponsorship is part of this. This would be at no cost to the Parks Department from a startup cost, okay? So, and the idea behind the alcohol sales is that's the revenue stream, or the biggest part of the revenue stream. So that's something that we feel is necessary in the event to actually be profitable. Otherwise, the village, the sponsors would have to take some of that heavy lifting.
It's a town, by the way. Second time. It's a town,
Town.
not a village.
Okay, town. So yeah, other than that, that's really kind of where we're at.
Now the beer, is that through the park department, or is that through 9585?
That all has to be determined. That's part of our event. I
That's
mean,
what
we had
digging
talked
into.
about, the control of that, and because it's never been done at the town level, we really don't know how that would be to be determined. We would like to be able to get volunteers. There are some people that are qualified. There are some people that are not qualified. So, I mean, this is all new to us. This got laid in our lap in December. So we're just trying to move it forward as quickly as possible with the idea of, comboing this event with the fireworks.
Have we ever thought about talking to people that ran this originally? Because I thought we discontinued it because we lost a lot of money. when we used to do this. I mean, that's exactly the same place we used to do it.
Right.
That's the only fear I have, because I remember how it was with the officers and everything working. It was just like, it was full time. I mean, just paying them alone, then with the beer garden, with everything, they ended up discontinuing because it was such a huge project.
Right.
And trying to
Oh,
pay the overtime and everything, it was like, there was no profit made. And I didn't know if we could, I don't even know who did it. I don't know if it was the council at that time. Try to get something like, where did we go wrong? We need to fix that. Because, I mean, we don't want to lose money. That's for
No,
sure.
I think sponsorship would play a big role in this, okay? And obviously, in an inaugural event, it would be scaled to what I would consider a smaller scale and see where it leads. And maybe grow it from there. But some of the ideas that this event planner had were more community/family orientated. And and while we weren't in disagreement with that, we felt that the alcohol end of it would be the profit end, or at least the potential profit end. And that's why we wanted to make sure that the council was, on board, that legal was on board, so that we weren't crossing any barriers that we didn't know we would face. So everybody seems to think that it would work. So that's where we're at.
I kind of think it's worth trying, because
My only question would be, is would we all work together on, like you said, the alcohol and the food and all that, on who's actually gonna be presenting that? Because I know those gentlemen came up here at
Right.
last meeting.
We were,
They wanted to
that
be
was
part
more
of
of a
it.
private thing, and I think they've already been kind of talked out of that because of the scope that they're looking at. I think from a manpower style, we would need obviously some volunteers. We would, if it's a smaller scale, I would not have a problem if we had multiple, let's say, beer tents, one run by, hypothetically, Public Works, one run by the park board and stuff like that, to where you could generate your own revenue from such. Okay, we're talking food trucks, we're talking somebody like Welch's own, Open Flame Grilling, stuff like that. They would give a portion of their proceeds back to us, but yeah, that it's a private run entity. They would be able to
Because
make.
if it's gonna be the St. John thing, I would like the people that own businesses part of it, at least,
Right, well,
I don't want somebody
it would
coming
be
in-
offered to them. I mean, I know Roma caters some events. Obviously, Welch's caters some events. I mean, we would start there,
That would be wonderful.
but at the same token, maybe the time frame doesn't work. Maybe the quick turnaround on this doesn't work. So, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's a narrow window based on everything.
So I have a concern though, is that, so we don't know the profit margin, what it's gonna,
Correct.
if it's gonna or not.
Correct.
So in the years past, we've had like the public, we've had citizens that all volunteered to put events on together.
Correct.
So why would we take an outsider and pay them $3,000 to $5,000 to come into our town to plan an event that people have been planning in this town for years?
We had a public comment that night from someone that was more than willing to jump in. We would love to have them volunteers. We don't know that an event planner is necessary, okay? We just don't know who is going to get the ball rolling, okay? As an economic development committee, we're not looking to make money on this, as that's not our job. Our job is to try to generate development for the town community. Okay, so I mean, that's why I think it was laid at our doorstep. So it was obvious to us immediately that the Parks Board had to be 100% in, otherwise it doesn't work.
if I could just comment too, what I kind of seen from that meeting, Johnny, and what I kind of thought was inferred by the Economic Development Committee was that, they're going to initiate this festival, and it really spotlighted the need for a event coordinator, which would fall into the park department, looking for volunteers and workers. A lot of the proceeds would go to the park department, I think. They said they were, in favor of that. So I think the initial offering of this was to try and get it going. It spotlighted some of the deficiencies in the park department, which I think could really strengthen the park department, get us an extra couple employees. And again, we also said that we could piggyback and tie in with the clerk treasurer's office for the volunteers, like you said. Town of St. John, there's been a lot of instances where a lot of people do volunteer and step up. So that's kind of the flavor and the take I had on it. Would you?
Right, and, you know, to Tyler's comment that night too, is he would like to have an event coordinator that works specifically through the Parks Department, because that's where a lot of these things happen. So it was obvious to us that that's a glaring need, not only for our town, but for our Parks Department. So this is where we're trying to generate not just an identity, but ideas, and offer up some concepts here. We don't know where this is gonna go, but it could roll right into that Oktoberfest that the Malt Brothers and Welch's were talking about. There could be other events, like your Easter egg hunt, or some of these other things that would fall underneath that same guides at some point in time. So, I mean, I think the potential is endless, but at the same token, we're just trying to get this thing off the ground. And we just thought an event planner, a one-time shot that would be paid for by sponsors. This would not be at any cost to the village or to the town or the or the Parks Board. It would be something that the sponsorship would pick up, and we feel confident that we would be able to get them sponsors to at least, because we're looking at a budget here of, tens of thousands of dollars potentially if we go that route.
How was this position sought out after? Like, how did anybody know about this event? I mean, I'm a favor of using somebody in our own town instead of somebody from another city.
Once we got this laid on us, our president figured there was no way he was up to the task, so he reached out to people that he knew, got one from Cedar Lake to at least inquire, someone from South Holland inquire, no one from our town inquired. Now, I don't know to what reach, how far that reach went. I was not part of that process, so I can't comment to that. But these were two women that showed up that night that were willing to lay some proposals down and give us some ideas on, depending on how big or small you wanted to run this event, how to do it. So that's kind of where we went. I mean, the other girl wanted 20 grand. So we figured 3 to 5, but they run the entire thing. I mean, they come up with the ideas, they book the events, they book the truck. I mean, they do most of that initial prepping. So.
Keep in mind too that this position falls under a professional service. So this isn't necessarily somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be somebody that would be in the town that would, map forward or be interested, but rather somebody with some skills and qualifications for such a role. I think was the intention of in getting this going, and that would be allowed to actually seek out people specifically and not have it be, obviously a full open enrollment or interest that way.
It's temporary.
Yeah, it's a one-shot deal.
With any type of professional service, right? It's contracted for that purpose only. Obviously, Tyler hopes it turns into something permanent for someone on the staff or a new position, but.
The motion that we passed was for this year, that amount of money, and whether that entailed just that event or that event and maybe something else between now and, between then and the end of the year, that was up in the air. And we had to go back to this woman and make sure that it was good with her. As far as I know, I've not heard to the difference. So, as far as I know, she will be here next Wednesday night to kind of lay out some ideas. So I invite any and all that want to come. And if you guys have any questions or comments, she'd be the person to ask, because we just don't know how big of a scale we want. Okay, coming from outside of St. John, I've been at events like this with the combination of fireworks where up to 10,000 people showed up. So, I mean, it's the potential there is probably more than we can handle. We just have to figure out where we can start.
Okay.
This is probably an obvious question, but have you talked to the ice rink? Make sure they're on board? I know the ice rink, because some of that's their property.
Yes. Tyler was going to talk to them.
Just so they're on the same page.
Correct. all this has to, that's why we're here tonight, because we realize there are steps and protocols that have to fall into place. And this is not, you know, we want to get the ball rolling, but we're here tonight, or I'm here tonight to just let you guys know that at the end of the day, you guys need to be on board. Because if you're not, then it goes away. And, you know, our contract that we have not even offered to this woman, it's a verbal contract at this point. It's not a written contract. So, I mean, it's not been signed. It's not been done. We just voted to extend the contract to her. So that's where we're at. But that can all, if you guys say now you don't think the timetable works, it's more than what you know, interested in being a part of, then we look maybe to do it again, maybe for next year. And then look for, you know, more in-house people to make it work.
I think I could support, it seems like they're doing all the heavy lifting, and if we could just support it, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do we need to do at this time? Like,
We're not really having to do anything. Tyler, with the workers that we have, and he will kind of coordinate that, what's ever available. And then again, I think we're gonna have to connect with the clerk treasurer's office and kind of get something out for volunteers. We'll need just a lot of volunteers. You nailed it with that, Johnny. I mean, we've always depended on volunteers. So I don't think there's a lot required of us, except that, you know, knowing that we support it, and if we can pick up any slack that they might approach us with, we'd be willing to work with them.
I think if you had any questions, if you want to roll back to the January meeting of the EDC, these two women were there. You can watch it on YouTube and just edit to that part and get some ideas of what they were thinking. And maybe that will answer some questions. Maybe you'll have more. I have no idea. It's just that I volunteered to show up here tonight and kind of lay it out as we know it, as it speaks right this very moment. But obviously there are some things that need to, but the timetable is the crunch. But
Dave, I'm not sure what ideas that she's going to have. I think my recommendation is going to be, you know, to keep it relatively small for this year, do a couple things and do them well, as opposed to trying to do.
But see, this is the input that we're looking for, and I agree.
Right.
I agree with you. I mean, we had talked that day, and you know, there was talk of starting it at noon, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's you got to hold people all the way till 9, 10 o'clock at night for a fireworks. Yeah, you're asking for a lot. I was more thinking the dinner hour, the 3 to 4 o'clock time, and having some games maybe for the kids. And there's some ideas that were kicked around, but it's basically we want to start it out as a family community event. That's our goal, and then using the food and drink as our way of making some money. That, like I said, to Tyler's point, I think our ultimate goal here is to be able to have someone that sits in the Parks Department that handles these things on a yearly basis, on staff here.
Yes, that's the key.
It'd be nice to have more nice family events and things for our residents to enjoy. It'd be nice. So it'd be
Absolutely.
nice to start it.
And I think eventually, you know, there's talk about a community center, and it's premature at this point, but even that would, at some point in time, work into that.
Absolutely. Anything else, gentlemen?
No.
If not, Dave, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your comments. Mike, thank you for introducing.
Sure. So
Any
maybe
other
a little-
comments?
Yes, maybe a little more information that I know that Mike and I and Tyler and Jason and John are going to meet on Thursday. We're going to meet with the liaison, the potential planner, and we're going to work out that contract. So if there's something that's now not verbal, it's going to be a proper contract that has goals, and it'll be completely. It should be something completely that's transparent and proper. So we're going to be working on that on Thursday. So look forward to that.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then we can move on to number 8, payment of the bills. Consider payment of the bills in the amount of $97,400.56.
make a motion to pay the bills as posted, $97,456.
9.
I'll second that.
That's a motion by Mike Moffett and a second by Pat Connolly. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. Number 9, public comment. Any public comments? Okay, thank you. Item 10, motion to adjourn.